Live in the studio with Lana and Rebecca, where we're at. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
It's been a little bit of a hectic morning, I have to say. You know, we're both parents, and I just got a call that my daughter might need to have her appendix out. So,
that's terrible. I can't even imagine what that is.
I gotta say, I only bring up the story with my daughter because I think it's what so many of us do. And it's this balancing act, right? We're always trying to balance everything. And you get into middle age, you're trying to balance, obviously, your health, your hormones, also, maybe your alcohol consumption, maybe your exercise, right? I mean, your kids.
Exactly. And, just trying to figure what our place is, especially now, there's so many other things that are going on, we are starting this is our new business. But, within that, there's we're expected to do social media. We're expected to figure out how to eat healthier. We're supposed to be exercising again. So add that into your day. Find time for that. Carve some time out. You're supposed to meditate. Carve some more time out. Yeah. So even just the idea of carving time out to do something that's supposed to be relaxing is then stressful. So where do we find,
a good point.
Where do we find this balance?
Right.
So we thought we should turn, like you said, to an expert. So we have today Dr. Jennifer Zelovitzky, or Dr. Jen, as she's known by her patients. And she is a women's health expert and actress turned doctor. So she's also the clinical director of the menopause and perimenopause program at Medcan. And Dr. Jen is super passionate about helping women get informed and empowered about their bodies and wellness. The other thing she's about to do, super exciting, is launch this new platform, Medsplaining, which just has to do with all things women's health and wellness.
But you consider changing careers now and going to med school in your 30s. Are you crazy?
Today, I'd like to talk to you about libido at midlife. We are here in the studio today filming some episodes for my podcast, which will be launching in September.
I'm Dr. Jennifer Zelovitzky. I'm a certified menopause practitioner, women's health expert.
Hi, Dr. Jen. Thank you for coming on where we're at. We really appreciate it. We were so glad to make a connection with you because I think you're the perfect person to talk about, a lot of what we're feeling, which is we need balance. I actually woke up this morning to a text from my daughter, who's actually not living in Toronto right now. She's a university student. She's working in the States. And she went into the ER. She started vomiting blood. She went into the ER and they were she's okay, but it's apparently appendicitis. So she's calling me literally as we're about to start this. And I was like, oh, so, hence the no makeup face this morning on me. But, I said to Lana, this is the balance, right? This is the balance. She's going to be okay. So I feel good about that. She has to get the appendix removed. The point being, Lana does this. I do this. Everybody's doing this. We need to talk about how this balancing act, how can you help us with this? And what are the most important things to be recalibrating and balance?
Absolutely. I mean, I think what you touched on already is something I face this too. It's a miracle if I get out of the house in the morning without one of the kids or one of the dogs or my husband or somebody coming up with some crisis that I have to solve, because we're the problem solvers in our families. Let's face it. We have to keep everybody happy and calm and fed and clothed and and in good health. Balance doesn't just happen. I think that's where a lot of women come to this realization at midlife. We keep waiting for balance to happen. I know I've been guilty of this in the past too. Okay, it's going to get easier at some point. I remember, there's this concept in medicine, the first 5 years, quote unquote. And, when I was in my first 5 years, I kept saying, awesome, I'm at year 4, year 5, I'm going to get to year 5 and something magical is going to happen where it all falls into place. And suddenly I have more time for myself. And I got to year 6 and it was worse than ever. I couldn't find that magical balance where I felt like I was able to, fit all the pieces of my personal pie chart in. And so I think what I've really come to realize is it's more about priorities. It's more about deciding what are your priorities. And when you are firm on those, that's when you start to have a sense of a little bit more balance.
Yes. I mean, it's true because I think, especially as we, like you were saying, I thought I would have some balance, and lately I feel it's crazier than ever. You kind of think, oh, your kids are getting older, and then you realize they're still not doing all the shit they're supposed to be doing. So yes, they might be in their late teens or 20s, but you're doing all the legwork, which, did our parents do it for us? Absolutely not. At 19, I was out, 18, I was out the door living on my own. And paying for myself. But, so I kind of thought, okay, I won't have to deal with this one. I won't have to deal with that one. And I'm going to have to, I'm going to be able to do this. And it just, like, is there ever going to be that time? Because I'm already in my 50s when there's the balance. Like, when does that come? When I'm 70? When I'm 80? Like, exactly. Then it's kind of too late.
Exactly. This isn't a dress rehearsal, right?
And we have this extended lifespan. We keep, sort of seeing this. And I just read something in a Mayo Clinic, they were doing a synopsis for a new book they've got. And they said, a woman who's 50 years old can expect to live another 35 years. So can you give us a little idea about, I know you've had a couple of careers, first of all, but once you got into medicine, and now you have a specialty working in women's health. Give us an idea of where that came from, and then we'll get into what you cover and what you suggest. Like, what was the impetus? Why did you want to go in that direction?
Right. Well, I'll give you the Coles Notes version, but basically I started off, I came from a showbiz family. Even my mother worked on the shopping network in Canada, right? And was out, on the air every night. And my brothers and sisters and I, we were all in the business from a very early age. So I grew up sort of as an actress, as a model, not on your level, Lana. I'm talking like
nobody's on Lana's. The rest of us didn't get cover girl ads, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't make it. I didn't make it to that level. But then I decided, well, this is no way to actually pay the rent. So I got a degree in economics, and I ended up in the finance world. I was on Bay Street. I was doing accounts receivable for large companies. And then my sister was diagnosed with a very rare form of cancer. And I was sort of thrown into this world of helping guide her treatment because they didn't really have a treatment protocol. And I was working by day in the office and up all night poring over medical journals. And I was very lucky to meet my husband at this time. And his father was a really well-established physician. And he said, I think you have a knack for this. I think you've missed your calling. And that, in conjunction with seeing my sister go through this life-altering event, I realized I needed to become a healthcare provider, but I had no idea how. I mean, I had no science background. So I went back, I did undergraduate science courses. I did an MBA in healthcare administration, thinking maybe that would be what I would do to advocate. And then I just said, no, I think I really want to be hands-on with patients and have an impact on them on an individual level. So I was lucky enough. It's a miracle now looking back on it, but I was accepted to a Canadian medical school, and I commuted because my kids were really little at the time.
Whoa.
Wow. Yeah.
You had young kids and you went to medical school?
My daughters were 3 and 5. I was 35 and I started med school. And someone said to me, you're going to be 40 anyway. Do you want to follow your dream and see what you can accomplish at 40? Or do you want to keep stuck in this place you're at, not quite sure? And I took their advice, and thank goodness I did. And then eventually through family medicine, I came to realize I really had a passion for women's health and went on and became a certified menopause practitioner. So I realized this was a very long Coles Notes, but there's really no way around the fact that I have pivoted. I have taken this very thoughtful, long journey that's led me to where I am, which interestingly has allowed me now to be in a place where I can use all of those hats.
Well, I'm sure, like having small children and going back to school. I mean, and then not even just school, going back to med school, going to med school. That required a lot of like balance in your life and how to figure that out. So certainly you have like the firsthand experience of the family work balance and all of that. But I know that within your medical practice, there's also the aspect of the kind of physical balance that you deal with women who are going through menopause or who are in menopause, and how, like whether it's hormonal, physical, like all these kind of changes that happen and how we can work. Like when you think about balance, I think when people think about it, they're thinking about only, the life work, whereas all of this internal stuff, you kind of can't really do the life work that well if you don't have this internal hormonal stuff going balanced, right?
Right. The physical stuff in general. That's a great point. So what do you say? Like, where do you start? If Lana and I walk in, where do we begin with you?
Okay. So first I go through your preventative screening to make sure that you are completely up to date. I'm talking about your pap tests, your mammograms, colonoscopy, if you're at the right age for that. And I make sure that in general, we've done everything we can to minimize what we know are the big ticket items, the cardiovascular disease, diabetes. These are the things that are killing more women than even the things we fear the most, right? You're twice as likely to die of cardiovascular disease than breast cancer, and yet we're all terrified of breast cancer, right? So I make sure that we're focusing on the right big ticket items. We do touch on nutrition. I'm very fortunate to work with a registered dietitian in my program because we don't learn enough about nutrition in medical school. So the macronutrients, right? Like I want to make sure women are getting enough protein because we lose so much muscle mass over the perimenopause transition along with bone mass. And it's really crucial to maintain your muscle mass. And this is where a lot of women go wrong. They do more and more and more carb restriction, running, cardio, and they wonder why they can't lose weight. And it's because they're losing muscle mass, and muscle is really the engine that drives our metabolism. So of course, nutrition and exercise go hand in hand. So we have to hit our protein targets, and we're pretty specific about that. It's 1.2 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight of protein per day. And that is a sliding scale because it depends how active you are. And that leads me to my next point, which is exercise. And it has to be the right type of exercise. We need to be getting about 90 minutes of resistance training every week. And that can be overwhelming for women. And often they feel like there's no way I can do that. I'm just going to give up. But 10 minutes a day adds up to 70 minutes a week.
So is that just free weights or, going to the gym and listening? What are other forms? How can we do that?
It is whatever you're going to do, whatever you're going to enjoy. For some women, it's Pilates. For some women, it's free weights at home or body weight or...
Right. Yeah. Like bar method or something. Yeah.
Can it also be working? Because now this is a self-centered question. Like I'm trying to do, some sort of like landscaping, but by myself, and I'm not a landscaper, but lifting the rocks, like the gardening. Can we incorporate that kind of heavy stuff into it?
Absolutely. Anything you're doing that's building strength and building muscle. And I think you have to have a flexible approach to it too, because the other important aspect of exercise is we get injured. So joint muscle pain is such a big part of perimenopause and menopause and midlife in general. And so what often happens is it's not that we have this gentle sloping downward trajectory of our physical fitness, but we get injured or we have a setback and we stop moving. And then we never quite get back to our original baseline. And then we have another setback and the baseline gets lower and lower and lower. And it's actually a stepwise progression of a loss of our mobility. So I tell women, like, if you hurt your elbow, why did you stop working out for 6 weeks? The other thing is sleep, of course. And women are notoriously terrible at getting it. But one of the biggest studies showed that women who sleep less than 7 or 8 hours a night gained more weight on average after menopause than women who hit that 7-hour minimum. And I'll just say, like, the very last aspect of lifestyle, alcohol, smoking, obviously.
Okay, so that's the bucket. So let's get down and dirty about alcohol consumption.
Is there a balance with that?
I'll let you know, the Canadian, because I'm in Canada, Rebecca, I know you are too. So the guidelines came out in 2022. And this was as a result of COVID. We all happened during COVID.
Yikes.
The only thing you could do all day was go to the grocery store, order food, or drink alcohol. And a lot of people drank alcohol to deal with
and
this.
did both. I did both. I ate and I drank.
Right? It was the end of the world. We might as well.
Exactly.
So people were drinking way too much. And part of the rationale for keeping the alcohol stores open was unfortunately, people who are dependent on alcohol can have a seizure if they abruptly withdraw from it. So that was part of the rationale for keeping access to alcohol available. Unfortunately, what they saw as a result of the pandemic was a huge uptick in emergency room visits for alcohol-related illness. Well, because up until that point, we had sort of a 7 drinks a week for women, 14 drinks a week for men. Now they're saying it's a sliding scale. So what I explained to my patients is, again, it's up to you to decide, choose your own adventure. How much risk do you want to accept? 0 to 2 drinks per week, and I'm talking like 5-ounce glass of wine or 1 12-ounce beer or cooler, or 2 ounces of liquor is one drink, right? So 0 to 2 is low risk, and I'm talking low risk for all kinds of cancers and heart disease, heart attacks and strokes. Moderate risk is 3 to 6 per week, and high risk is 7 or more. And so I'm not here to tell you what you should do, but I will tell you this is the risk you're incurring. And it's ironic to me because so many women, I spend the vast majority of my consult time with them talking to them about how breast cancer is not increased dramatically by hormone therapy, as we have all been led to believe. But not only that, women who have breast cancer, even with breast cancer, are twice as likely to die of a heart attack than they are, or a stroke, than they are of their breast cancer. So I'd be remiss if I didn't explain to my patients, if you're drinking 10 or 12 or 14 drinks a week, why are you worrying about this hormone patch that I'm prescribing to you?
Right.
So the other component to all of this, like what you were saying about COVID and people starting to drink more, and, maybe they were starting to, smoke more, or do more recreational drugs, but that had a lot to do, certainly drinking, with the mental, the stress, your mental health of being in that situation. So any kind of mental health issues are something, again, that you need to balance, whether it's, and certainly, like not getting enough sleep because your hormones are out of whack. You're going to be in one state, if you might have lost your job during COVID, and it's a couple years later, but you've struggled to get back to the same financial place. That's another like mental stressor. So, what do you recommend with regarding that, as how people can kind of integrate that?
It's not always easy to access the supports that you need. So I would definitely say there are some things you can certainly do on your own. We know that exercise is one of the best antidepressant, anti-anxiety treatments out there. Vigorous daily exercise, even going for a long walk, getting some fresh air, these can be very helpful. Being social really helps with your mental health, just not isolating yourself. We were also isolated during COVID, and I think that really contributed to the mental health crisis that we're sort of seeing now. But asking for support. There are virtual and in-person mental health resources, even for people who can't afford or don't have insurance. Speak to your doctor. They do know how to access those resources. It's crucial to intervene early. If you're feeling like you're really having more days that you're feeling low than that you're feeling low, that could be a sign that you're depressed. If you're losing interest in things that are normally very interesting and inspiring to you, that's also a sign of potential depression. And certainly this can peak at midlife.
So the other issue that sort of we keep hearing about as a result of longevity, which I want to say, I think we're all on board. It's so amazing. If you can set yourself up, and that's what, where we're at is kind of about setting yourself up so you can live the life that you want. This is a gift. But we've talked a little bit about this with past guests, but I'd love to get the medical perspective on brain health and balancing out sort of, I'll call it cognition, and what we can do to set ourselves up to hopefully, diminish the effects that we see, unfortunately, with, dementia, Alzheimer's right now.
Well, I think that there's, again, I wish they had more comprehensive studies, but what we do know is, again, being social, remaining social, interestingly, does seem to play a strong role in the development of dementia. Continuous learning. I think really staying interested, reading, engaging, learning new things is such an important thing. Exercise, again, I keep going back to exercise, but it does seem to play a role in preventing dementia. They've noticed some correlations between people who are more physically active with the development of dementia or Alzheimer's. And there is emerging evidence, and I can't say anything is conclusive yet, but if we introduce hormone therapy for people who are symptomatic at the right time, within 10 years of their final period, there does seem to be some indication that might prevent dementia later in life.
So as if you don't have enough on your plate, because I know you have a serious balancing act. I mean, you've got family, you've got a full career. I'm so curious about your new platform, Medsplaining. Can you tell us what Medsplaining is and why you really wanted to, kick it off and get it off the ground? Well, why it's important.
Yeah, sure. So Medsplaining is a social media platform. It's soon to be a podcast. We'll be launching our first podcast episode soon. It's always been something I've wanted to do because I remember as a non-science person coming into medicine, as an older person coming into medicine, I remember the early days where I would sit with the medical textbook in one hand and the medical dictionary in the other hand. I literally was learning a foreign language. Medicine is so interesting because we are reading in one language and explaining it to the patient in another. And I thought that, with the time pressures of today's medical system, patients are not getting the clear explanations that they need to have to understand their health. Why do they need that test? Why should they bother to go to the doctor for a pap test and make sure they get it every 3 years? And so I kind of started with this concept of everything your doctor wants you to know, but doesn't have time to explain to you. And I went from there. So it's really designed for patients, for women of all ages, not just perimenopause and menopause, but women, because I think women in their 20s who are healthier become women in their 30s who are healthier. And those women are better positioned to get through the perimenopause and menopause transition in better health, right? And avoid a lot of these problems that we see. So I really want it to be fun, engaging, informative, and help patients have the right tools and information to advocate for themselves and specifically use those 15 minutes with the doctor and get what they want out of it.
Amazing. Because I think that you just nailed it. It's you don't know what you don't know.
But that's true. Like Rebecca, it's so great to have this because, you don't know what to ask. How can you know what to ask if you don't know what to ask?
Lana, you brought up something the other day, which I actually think, do you want to talk a little bit about cortisol?
Yes. That's, again, the idea of balance, right? And balancing your stress. And so that was, something certainly with me, I had to go and deal with that because my cortisol levels were like ridiculous. And because I was wondering, why am I retaining all this weight? So my stress level was through the roof. I mean, obviously I was drinking like about 10 cups of caffeinated tea in the day. And she was like, okay, let's just start there.
What is cortisol and why is that something we need to really be aware of?
Yeah, it's a stress hormone that's produced by our adrenal glands, which are these little sort of triangular shaped organs that sit on top of our kidneys. And it is, like most hormones in our body, designed to fluctuate, designed to go up and down. And it does respond to a degree to stress. If it is markedly reduced or elevated, it usually indicates a more serious medical disorder. Medical results have to be taken in a context. And just because a number is a little bit elevated, well, that might be, like you said, you're having 10 cups of caffeine a day. It's first thing in the morning and it's supposed to be at its highest. You are going through a period of stress, but it's doing what it's supposed to do and it's mildly elevated so that your bodily functions can respond appropriately to it. We have, this is where the context of medical experience and medical school does come in, and part of why I wanted to create Medsplaining is there are thresholds for elevation. where to us it indicates there might be a disease process at play. And even, and so you can look at anything. People are kind of trying to look at blood sugar now as this big thing that, oh my goodness, my glucose was up in the middle of the night. It's like, well, why were you monitoring your glucose in the middle of the night?
Because you're not getting enough sleep then.
Yeah, now your cortisol's gone up.
No,
and you're out of balance.
Your body's producing glucose to keep your brain alive while you're sleeping because you're going through a fasting period, and that's normal. And if you took it again 2 hours later, it would be back to normal.
So Medsplaining is evidence-based, which is, that's, I think, the key, because we have, Lana and I have discussed that a lot as well, and with different people.
Well, yeah, the whole thing about you and I both have young adult children, right? And where do they get the information? Dr. TikTok.
Yeah.
Where'd you find that out? Oh, well, I watched this thing on TikTok.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Jen, just to sort of round up for us, can you just give us the bullet points? Women in their middle years, what are the main buckets that we need to be balancing that are so important for moving forward?
The first step is schedule things in. Like I said, this is not about waiting to find balance. This is about prioritizing balance. So let's start from the top. Prioritize 7 to 8 hours of sleep most nights. We all have nights where we don't sleep as well. Don't beat yourself up. It's fine. We're looking for the average. Eat whole foods, largely plant-based, nutrient-rich diet every day with enough protein to help you retain and maintain your muscle mass. And then you look at exercise. 75 minutes of vigorous activity a week, or 150 minutes of moderate activity, plus 90 minutes of resistance training. And sometimes those are incorporated. If you're doing cardio that includes resistance, you can kind of get a 2-for-1. You want to minimize alcohol as much as possible, preferably 2 or less drinks per week. You want to avoid smoking. You want to avoid a lot of recreational drug use or any recreational drug use. You want to maintain your mental health, check in with yourself, stay socially vibrant, keep learning. And you want to have some trustworthy sources of medical information to make sure that you're staying on top of your screening, staying on top of your cardiovascular risk profile, and looking at the big picture rather than seeking out shortcuts and quick fixes.